I do feel a little bit like a weather reporter right now. We're going to see rain coming in from the west. Anyway, we are having these crushes and like celebrity crushes and whatever else, but we kind of grow out of it. And if we haven't grown out of it, it means something's been interrupted in that process. I really feel like a weather reporter now. This is not a good look, but I mean, the information's good. It's not about the aesthetic, I don't suppose. Point is, so we will imagine what it's like to be with this person. We're not in a relationship with them. We've maybe been on a date, or maybe not. Maybe it's someone we just like. Maybe it's someone we haven't met, right? And one of the reasons that happens is because there's this period of time we go through, this process we go through, particularly when we're in our teenage years, whereby we go through this stage of having crushes on people. And I remember reading in a magazine, you know, those sections, and there was someone who was really struggling with crushes, and the agony aunt person said, you know, one day there'll be a time when, even though you're crushing on someone or someone's crushing on you, there'll be a time when you both like each other and you'll develop a really beautiful relationship. And I remember reading that when I was young and being like, well, when's that going to happen? But of course I had to heal a lot of my own stuff to be able to clear the path for that to happen, right? So there's this period of time we go through when we're in our teens, where we are having these crushes and like celebrity crushes and whatever else, but we kind of grow out of it. And if we haven't grown out of it and we're getting in this fantasy relationship thing when we're an adult, it means something's been interrupted in that process. So the question then is, what happened when you were a teenager that caused your brain to not go through that process? Did something traumatic happen? Did you have to go in survival mode in some way? And therefore it interrupted that natural process. And reason number two is it might be echoing some kind of fear that you have, fear of intimacy or fear of engulfment. So you know how we talked about in point one how it's generating feelings that you want to have, it's helping you get an unmet need met in a way that feels safe to you. So why would it feel safe to you? Because you might have a fear of getting close. So in psychological terms, that's, like I mentioned, fear of intimacy and fear of engulfment. I'll break down what that means. Fear of intimacy is a fear of being close to someone and being vulnerable and naked with them. Not naked as in physically, although there could be something there to work through, but usually it's that feeling of being really emotionally naked with someone that can be really, really exposing. To just continue the pun of nakedness. It can feel really exposing and really vulnerable, and that can feel like an unsafe place to be if we learn along the line that relationships were not safe. And of course that goes back to childhood. I won't go into that here because I feel like you've got a plethora of information about how to find out what happened in your childhood and what it made you believe about relationships, about your role in them, and about the level of safety. So just as a quick example, I said I wasn't going to go into it, but here we are. Just as a quick example, if you saw your parents screaming and shouting at each other, in your subconscious, you're locking in a belief of, oh, relationships are hard, relationships are not safe, relationships are not a place where I really want to be, they're painful, people fight all the time, no thanks. So then we develop this association and this belief that relationships are hard and therefore intimacy is something that's not safe and it's scary, and then that develops a fear of intimacy, a fear of being close, because we don't actually trust people or trust relationships in general as like a third entity. So the other fear there is fear of engulfment. That's a really interesting one. So fear of engulfment is a fear of losing yourself in relationships. I noticed this in myself when I'm observing couples. I'm like, ooh, are they really happy in that relationship, or are they losing themselves in the relationship? And then I stop and go, or is that just reflecting my own fear of engulfment? So if you are someone who has this is actually a different archetype, a different pattern, the pattern of Miss Lone Wolf, which I talk about quite a bit. Miss Lone Wolf is like the self-made woman. You've built your community, you've built your platform, your business, or maybe you're in the corporate world, in your career, like you're proudly self-made, and look, that's great, that's beautiful. But there's a difference between being really independent and then having this kind of dysfunctional independence where you can't let anyone in. So we want to reach this point in the middle where we have this healthy interdependence, so we're not codependent and leaning too much on other people and losing ourselves. We're also not dysfunctionally independent and pushing people away and not asking for support. We have this healthy interdependence where we know who we are, we know our capabilities, and we can ask for support in a really beautiful way and be supported and support others as well. So it's a really, really nice balance. But when we have that fear of engulfment, We have a fear of really losing ourselves in a relationship. So in other words, we think we're not going to be able to be who we are. Maybe we think our career is going to suffer or our business is going to suffer. So we're afraid of losing ourselves in the relationship and losing something. That would happen if, when you had a family who didn't have any boundaries, where one person's problem became everyone's problem, and where... I really lost my train of thought there because the rain started coming in and it started distracting me. So basically, if you had a family where one person's problem became everyone's problem and there was no real sense of self, there was no self-identity, like the identity was the family unit, the identity was the family dysfunction. It was like, you know, dad's drinking problem or mum's narcissism or, you know, your brother's delinquency or whatever it was, that became like everyone's problem. And so you didn't feel like you could really fully express who you were, and you didn't have a strong, it's not that you didn't have a strong sense of self, but perhaps it wasn't safe to express that, and now you're very expressed in who you are and you don't want to lose that again. I really hope that helped you. I'm going to get back in my car now. My hands are freezing. And I'm going to go for a swim in the lake. I legitimately have my bikini on right now, just proof. I am actually going to go for a swim in the lake you see behind you. Where I'm going to swim is like over there somewhere. It's up there somewhere. Yeah, I'm actually going to get in this lake now. I know that's kind of crazy, but I started swimming in the summer because I want to do the Wim Hof thing in the winter when it gets cold. Your wish is my command, says the universe, and here we are. I'm going to jump in a really cold lake. So good times, good times. I really hope this video helped you, and I will see you next week.
I mean, there is now, but there quite often isn't anyone else.